In 2009, a paranormal researcher named Fiona Broom sat in a hotel lobby in Chicago, waiting for a conference on conspiracy theories to begin. She was not there to speak. She was there to listen. But during a casual conversation with a stranger, she mentioned something she had always believed to be common knowledge, that Nelson Mandela had died in prison during the 1980s. The stranger stared at her. Mandela had not died in prison. He had been released in 1990, become president of South Africa, and was very much alive at that moment. Broom was not alone. In that same lobby, she found 5 other people who shared the exact same false memory. They could describe the funeral, the news coverage, the rioting in South African townships, the speech by his widow. None of it had ever happened. She called it the Mandela Effect, and she had no idea what she had just unlocked. The phenomenon was not new. It had been hiding in plain sight for decades, scattered across millions of minds like fragments of a dream nobody wanted to admit was fading. But Broom gave it a name, and once something has a name, people start looking for it everywhere. And they found it. In 2012, a survey of 2,000 Americans revealed that nearly 40% of them believed the children's book series was called the Berenstain Bears. It is not. It has never been. The covers, the copyright records, the author's own family, all of them spell it Berenstain. Yet the false memory is so persistent that used bookstores report customers pulling the books from shelves and staring at the covers in genuine confusion, as if the letters had rearranged themselves while they slept. The same year, a viral thread on the internet asked a simple question: what color was Darth Vader's lightsaber in the original Star Wars? Thousands of respondents answered without hesitation: pink. Not red. Pink. They described the specific shade. They remembered being surprised by it as children. But in every frame of every print of the 1977 film, the blade is red. There is no alternate cut. No lost reel. No pink. Then came the geography. Thousands of people, independently, from different countries and different generations, insisted that New Zealand was located northwest of Australia, not southeast. They drew maps from memory. They described flight paths. They remembered learning it in school. Some became angry when shown a globe, accusing cartographers of moving the islands. The maps had not changed. The land had not drifted. Only the memory had shifted, and it had shifted in the same direction, in the same way, across millions of minds. Broom's original theory was benign. She suggested that people with the same false memories might have crossed over from parallel timelines, that somewhere in the multiverse, Mandela really had died in prison, and fragments of that reality were bleeding into ours. It was a comforting thought. It meant the error was not in the mind. It was in the fabric between worlds. But the scientists who began studying the effect reached a much more disturbing conclusion. In 2015, a team of cognitive psychologists at the University of Chicago designed an experiment. They showed participants a list of words: bed, rest, awake, tired, dream, wake, snooze, blanket, doze, slumber, nap, yawn, pillow, night, sleep. Then they removed the list and asked the subjects to recall as many words as they could. Nearly 80% of participants remembered seeing the word sleep. It was not on the list. The human mind, when given a pattern, does not record what it sees. It records what it expects to see. The researchers called it memory conformity. The brain is not a camera. It is a storyteller, and storytellers fill in gaps. But that did not explain the specificity of the Mandela effect. Why Berenstain and not Berenstain? Why pink and not orange? Why northwest and not west? The errors were not random. They clustered around the same wrong answer, again and again, across populations that had never met. Then a linguist at MIT noticed something strange. The false memories almost always followed the path of least cognitive resistance. Berenstain is a common Jewish surname. Berenstain is not. The brain, encountering an unfamiliar spelling, silently corrected it to the familiar one, then filed the correction away as the original fact. Darth Vader's lightsaber was memorable because it was the weapon of a villain. The brain, seeking to make it more distinctive, tinted it slightly. New Zealand's location was misremembered because northwest of Australia created a cleaner mental map than the messy diagonal truth. The mind was not lying. It was optimizing. And here is where the story turns dark. In 2019, A data scientist at Google fed the entire corpus of human search history into a language model and asked a single question: which false memories were spreading and how fast? The results were published in a paper that received almost no media attention, perhaps because the implications were too large to fit in a headline. The Mandela Effect, the data showed, was not just a quirk of individual cognition. It was a social phenomenon. The false memories spread like viruses through language. Once a critical mass of people began saying Berenstain, the word became easier to say than Berenstain. Once enough people described New Zealand as Northwest, that description became the default mental image. The error did not need to be taught. It propagated through conversation, through headlines, through casual repetition, until the wrong version felt more natural than the right one. The scientist wrote, "We are not remembering the past. We are voting on it. And the vote is rigged by familiarity." The most chilling finding came last. The study identified a threshold, approximately 15% of a population sharing the same false memory. Once that threshold was crossed, the false version became self-sustaining. New people exposed to both the truth and the error would adopt the error at a rate of nearly 60%, not because it was more credible, but because it was more common. The brain trusts consensus over evidence. It always has. By 2023, the researchers estimated that at least 12 major historical facts had crossed the 15% threshold in global consciousness. Not conspiracy theories, not opinions, facts, dates of events, names of inventors, borders of countries, quotations from speeches, all of them quietly drifting, being overwritten by smoother, simpler, more familiar versions of themselves. The Mandela Effect is not a glitch. It is a feature. Human memory was never designed to store truth. It was designed to store usefulness. And what is useful is not what is accurate. It is what is agreed upon. The brain does not want to be right. It wants to be in sync. Fiona Broome died in 2018, still believing that she had once lived in a timeline where Nelson Mandela perished in a prison cell. She was wrong about the timeline, but she was right about something larger. Reality is not a fixed object that we observe. It is a negotiation that we participate in, moment by moment, without ever signing a contract. The experiment is still running. You are inside it. Every time you correct someone, every time you let a misremembered fact slide, every time you repeat a quote you never verified, you are casting a vote. And the votes are being counted. The question is no longer whether our memories can be trusted. The question is whether truth, in a species that prioritizes harmony over accuracy, was ever anything more than the most popular mistake.